Ladies and gentlemen, I want to share a story with you. A man was walking down a busy street, overwhelmed by life, bills piling up, health failing, relationships strained. He looked up at the sky and asked, "God, where are you? I don't see you. I don't feel you." And then a woman sitting on a bench smiled at him. A child laughed in the distance. A stranger held the door open, but he kept walking, blind to it all. Everything we build, our relationships, our work, our dreams, rests on a foundation. And the strongest foundation, the only one that truly lasts, is love. But let's talk about what that really means. Because when we hear the word love, we often think of the grand moments, weddings, celebrations, words of deep affection. We think of love as something that happens to us, something we feel when conditions are right. But love is more than a fleeting emotion. It's a force, a choice, a foundation upon which everything else stands. Think about a house. A structure can be beautiful, massive, filled with the finest materials, but if the foundation is weak, none of it matters. A storm comes and the whole thing crumbles. The same is true for our lives. We can build careers, gather wealth, achieve success, but if love is not at the core, real selfless, unconditional love, then it all falls apart the moment hardship comes. Love is what holds us together when things get tough. It's what gives meaning to the work we do. It's what turns a simple moment into something sacred. But too often we look for love in the wrong places. We think love is found in admiration, in recognition, in being valued by others. And when we don't receive it in the way we expect, we assume it's missing. But love is not something we wait for. It's something we build. And when we build from love, everything changes. Consider this. Have you ever met someone who seems completely at peace, even when life is challenging? Someone who gives without expecting anything in return? Someone whose presence alone makes you feel safe? These people have one thing in common. Love is their foundation. They don't just receive love, they embody it. And the truth is, we all have the ability to do the same. Because love isn't just something we give to others, it's the way we approach life itself. When we approach work with love, we don't just complete tasks, we create meaning. When we approach struggles with love, we don't just endure, we grow. When we approach people with love, we don't just connect, we transform. But here's where many of us get stuck. We assume love has to be earned, that we have to prove ourselves worthy, that love is conditional, given only when we succeed, when we meet expectations, when we become enough. But that's not how true love works. Real love, the kind that serves as a foundation, is given freely. It exists not because of what we do, but because of who we are. And once we understand that, it shifts everything. Because if love is freely given, then we don't have to chase it. We don't have to fear losing it. We don't have to exhaust ourselves trying to be enough. We simply have to recognize that it's already here. It's in the kindness of a stranger, in the patience of a teacher, in the sacrifices of a parent, in the way nature continues to give without asking for anything in return. Love isn't rare. What's rare is our willingness to see it, to trust it, to let it be the thing we stand on. And when we do, when we stop searching for love as if it's missing, and start living as if it's the foundation, we become different people. We lead differently, we give differently, we experience life in a way that isn't dependent on external conditions. Because love, real love, is not just something we hope for, it's something we choose to stand on. It's the one thing that remains when everything else fades. We spend our lives searching for meaning, searching for purpose, searching for love. We convince ourselves that happiness, fulfillment, and peace are somewhere just beyond our reach, waiting to be found. But what if the real problem isn't that these things are missing, but that we are looking for them in the wrong places? Think about it. From the time we are young, we are taught to chase certain things. Success, approval, security. We believe that once we achieve enough, once we prove ourselves enough, once we gain enough, we will finally feel whole. So we set off on a journey believing that love is something we will one day reach, rather than something that already surrounds us. We look for love in accomplishments, if we can just be good enough. Good enough in our jobs, good enough in our relationships, good enough for the world, then maybe we will be loved. But have you ever met someone who has accomplished everything they ever dreamed of and still feels empty? Someone who has money, status, recognition, and yet there is a void inside them that nothing seems to fill? That's because love doesn't live in achievement. It doesn't wait at the finish line of success. It is not something we earn. It is something we embrace. We look for love in the approval of others. We believe that if enough people like us, respect us, admire us, then we will finally feel valued. So we shape our lives around expectations. We filter what we say. We suppress what we feel. We mold ourselves into what we think the world wants. And yet, no matter how much approval we gain, it never seems to be enough. Because the love that comes from external validation is conditional, and conditional love will never make us feel truly seen. We look for love in perfection. We tell ourselves that once we fix all of our flaws, once we become the best version of ourselves, we will finally deserve love. So we strive, we push, we criticize ourselves endlessly. But here's the problem. Perfection is an illusion. And when we tie our worth to something that can never be achieved, we live in a constant state of chasing what we will never catch. So where should we be looking? Look at the moments you overlook every day, the way a friend calls to check on you, not because they have to, but because they care, the way a stranger holds the door open, expecting nothing in return, the way the sun rises every morning, even after the darkest nights. Love is not some distant treasure hidden in the future. It is already here, woven into the fabric of everyday life. Look at the places you least expect. Love is in the struggle, in the lessons wrapped inside the pain, in the resilience we build when life knocks us down. We assume that hardship means love is absent, but sometimes it is in our most difficult moments that love reveals itself the most. Look at the way you give, not just the way you receive. Love is not something we passively wait for. It is something we actively create. When we stop searching for love as something to take and start living as people who give it freely, we suddenly realize that it was never missing. The act of giving love, through kindness, patience, understanding, is what fills the very void we were trying to fill all along. We often look in the wrong places, not because love is hard to find, but because we have convinced ourselves it has to come in a certain form. But love is not always loud, it is not always grand. Sometimes it is quiet, simple, and unexpected. Sometimes it's been there all along, we just have to open our eyes to see it. If you've ever questioned whether love is real, whether God is present, or whether goodness still exists in the world, I have one simple answer for you: kindness. Every act of kindness, no matter how small, is proof that love is not just an idea, it's a force at work, moving through people, shaping lives, and reminding us that we are never truly alone. But the challenge is that we often overlook it. We live in a world that conditions us to see the negative first. Turn on the news and you'll see stories of conflict, division, and struggle. Scroll through social media and you'll find endless debates, criticism, and comparison. It's easy to believe that the world is cold, that people are selfish, that love is fading. But for every act of hatred, there are 1,000 acts of love. The problem is, we don't talk about them enough. Think about the last time someone was kind to you. Maybe it was a simple smile from a stranger on a difficult day. Maybe it was a friend who listened when you had no one else to turn to. Maybe it was something so small, so ordinary, that you didn't even recognize it as love in action. But that's exactly what it was. Because kindness is love in motion. We often assume that proof of God's love has to come in big, undeniable ways. Miracles, signs, something extraordinary. But love doesn't always announce itself with fireworks. Sometimes it whispers through the kindness of another human being. A helping hand when you're struggling. A word of encouragement when you feel lost. A moment of patience when you expected frustration. These are not just random events. They are proof that love is present, that it is working through people, and that no matter how dark the world may seem, goodness still exists. But here's the real beauty of kindness. It multiplies. When someone shows us kindness, it softens us. It reminds us that we matter. And what happens when we feel valued? We pass it on. We become a little more patient, a little more generous, a little more aware of the needs of others. Think about a time when someone's kindness completely changed your day. Maybe you were feeling invisible and then someone acknowledged you. Maybe you were on the verge of giving up and then someone reminded you why you started. That one moment didn't just make you feel better, it changed the way you showed up for others. This is how love spreads. And the most amazing part? Kindness doesn't require wealth, status, or power. You don't need permission to be kind. You don't need to be in the perfect mood. You don't need to wait for the right moment. Kindness is always available, always within reach, and always capable of making an impact. Hold the door open for someone. Say thank you and mean it. Give a compliment without expecting one in return. Listen. Truly listen to someone who needs to be heard. These are simple things, yet they have the power to change lives, because the person you are kind to today may be carrying a burden you know nothing about. Your small act of kindness may be the only light they see in a world that feels overwhelming. Every act of kindness, no matter how small, is proof of something bigger than us. It is proof that love is alive, that we are connected, and that even in the moments when we feel unseen, someone somewhere is carrying love forward in ways we may never fully understand. When life is good, when everything is working in our favor, it's easy to believe that we are loved, that we are cared for, that we are exactly where we are supposed to be. But what happens when things fall apart? When the plans we made unravel, when we experience loss, when pain enters our lives in ways we never expected? Most of us, in those moments, ask the same question: where is God now? It's a natural reaction. When we suffer, we assume love has left us. We convince ourselves that if we were truly loved, we wouldn't have to go through hardship. But what if we've been looking at adversity the wrong way? What if struggle isn't a sign of abandonment, but a reminder of something greater? Think about the most defining moments of your life, the times that shaped you, stretched you, changed you. Were they the moments of comfort, or were they the moments of challenge? Pain, though difficult, has a way of revealing truth. It strips away the distractions, the noise, the illusions we cling to, and forces us to see what really matters. It teaches us what we are capable of. It strengthens us in ways nothing else can. It reminds us that love isn't proven in the absence of struggle, but in the way we are carried through it. Look at a child learning to walk. When they stumble and fall, do we get angry? Do we turn away from them? Of course not. We encourage them to get up, to try again. We know that falling isn't failure. It's part of the process. And yet, when we face our own struggles, we forget that the same love that watches over a child watches over us. Adversity is not a punishment. It is not a sign that we are forgotten. In fact, it is often the exact opposite. It is a call to grow, to trust, to lean into something bigger than ourselves. Some of the strongest people you will ever meet are not those who have never suffered, but those who have walked through fire and come out on the other side with more love, more wisdom, and more compassion than before. Not because their pain was easy, but because they recognized that even in their hardest moments, love was still present. Look at history. Some of the greatest leaders, the most inspiring figures, the ones who changed the world, all of them faced adversity. Not one of them had an easy path, but they didn't see struggle as proof that love was missing. They saw it as proof that their journey had purpose. We often pray for a smooth road. We ask for comfort, for certainty, for an easy way forward. But love doesn't always give us what we want. It gives us what we need. And sometimes what we need is to be reminded of our own strength, to be refined, to learn to trust even when we don't understand. Adversity is not the absence of love. It is a reminder of what love truly is. Not something that disappears when things get hard, but something that holds us steady when everything else is uncertain. Imagine waking up tomorrow with only the things you were grateful for today. What would you have left? Most of us go through life with our focus on what's missing, the opportunities we didn't get, the things we don't own, the relationships that didn't work out. We convince ourselves that happiness is always just out of reach, that if we could just have a little more success, more recognition, more certainty, then we would finally be content. But here's the problem. When we only focus on what's missing, we become blind to what's already there. Gratitude isn't just about saying thank you. It's about shifting the way we see the world. It's the difference between looking at your life and seeing lack versus looking at your life and seeing abundance. The circumstances may be the same, but the perspective changes everything. Take a moment and think about the last time you were truly grateful. Maybe it was after a near miss when you almost lost something and suddenly you realized how much it meant to you. Maybe it was when you saw someone struggling with something you had taken for granted. Or maybe it was simply a moment of stillness when you looked around and realized that even though life wasn't perfect, there was so much to be thankful for. Gratitude is like putting on a new pair of glasses. It doesn't change your reality, but it changes what you notice. The things you used to overlook suddenly stand out. The kindness of a stranger, the comfort of a familiar voice, the simple fact that your heart beats without you telling it to, that you have air in your lungs, that you are alive. But the real power of gratitude isn't just in what it helps us see, it's in what it does to us. When we are grateful, we become more present. Instead of always chasing the next thing, we learn to appreciate this moment, right here, right now. When we are grateful, we become more generous. The more we recognize how much we have, the more willing we are to give. Gratitude turns what we have into enough. And when we feel like we have enough, we stop hoarding, stop holding back, stop living in fear of scarcity. When we are grateful, we become more resilient. Challenges don't break us as easily because we have trained our minds to see the good, even in difficult times. Gratitude doesn't ignore pain, it transforms it. It shifts our focus from why is this happening to me to what is this teaching me. But here's the catch. Gratitude is not automatic. It's not something that just happens. It's something we have to practice. Most people don't default to gratitude. We default to comparison. We scroll through social media and see someone else with a better job, a bigger house, a more exciting life, and suddenly what we have doesn't seem like enough. We default to complaint. We focus on what went wrong instead of what went right. We let one inconvenience ruin an entire day instead of choosing to see all the things that went well. We default to worry. We spend so much time thinking about what could go wrong that we fail to notice what is already going right. But gratitude is a discipline. It's a habit we build, a practice we choose, a mindset we cultivate. And the more we practice it, the more it transforms us. Try this. Start each day by listing 3 things you're grateful for. Not the big, obvious things, but the small, overlooked details. The way the sunlight comes through your window in the morning, the taste of your first sip of coffee, the way your body heals itself without you even thinking about it. Because the truth is, love, joy, peace, they have been there all along. Gratitude is what opens our eyes to see them. When we hear the word love, we often think of emotions, of warmth, of connection, of that deep feeling we get when we care about someone. And while love can be felt, it was never meant to stop there. Because love, real love, is not just an emotion. Love is action. Think about it. If love were just a feeling, it would be inconsistent. Feelings change. One day we feel close to someone and the next we don't. One moment we feel inspired to help and the next we're too tired or distracted. If love depended on feelings alone, it would be unreliable, fleeting, temporary. But love was never meant to be passive. It was never meant to be just words or intentions. Love is something we do. It is a choice we make every single day. Look at the strongest relationships, the most enduring bonds, the people in your life who have made the biggest impact. I guarantee you what made their love powerful wasn't just what they said, it was what they did. Love is waking up early to take care of a child even when you're exhausted. Love is staying by a friend's side when they have nothing to offer in return. Love is showing up over and over again, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's hard, even when it doesn't feel easy, because real love doesn't wait for the perfect conditions. It doesn't ask, do I feel like it today? It moves, it sacrifices, it serves. And the most powerful thing about love as an action is that it transforms the way we live. When we shift our mindset from feeling love to choosing love, everything changes. We stop waiting for the right mood to be kind. We stop waiting for someone to deserve our patience. We stop waiting for relationships to be effortless before we commit. Instead, we create love through what we do. Look at forgiveness. If love were just a feeling, we would never forgive, because most of the time, when someone hurts us, the last thing we feel is love. But forgiveness is love in action. It's choosing to release resentment, not because we feel like it, but because love is bigger than our pain. Look at generosity. If love were just a feeling, we would only give when we felt emotionally moved. But love in action gives even when no one is watching. even when there is no recognition, even when there is nothing in return. Look at commitment. If love were just a feeling, relationships would fall apart the moment difficulties arise. But love in action stays, it works, it fights for connection, even when things get messy. And here's the most incredible part. When we act in love, the feelings follow. We don't wait until we feel inspired to do something good. We do it, and in doing so, we create love. We don't wait until we feel compassionate to help. We help, and in doing so, our hearts soften. We don't wait until we feel connected to someone before we show up for them. We show up. And in doing so, we build connection. Because love isn't passive. It isn't just something we hope for, something we wish would come to us. Love is a force that we put into motion. And when we choose to act in love, we don't just change the lives of those around us, we change ourselves. If you've ever held a magnifying glass in the sunlight, you know what happens. The light passing through the lens becomes concentrated, powerful enough to ignite a fire. But without focus, that same sunlight is scattered, warm, but without intensity. Our minds work the same way. What we focus on determines what we become. Think about the last time you were having a bad day. Maybe something small went wrong in the morning, spilled coffee, a frustrating conversation, unexpected delays. But instead of letting it go, you kept thinking about it. And the more you focused on it, the worse your days seemed to get. It wasn't just a single moment that affected you, it was the fact that your mind kept returning to it, making everything else feel heavier. Now think about the opposite. A time when something good happened, and you chose to focus on it. A kind word from a friend, a small success, a moment of peace in a busy day. And because you held on to it, because you kept that moment in your mind, it shaped the way you saw everything else. We reflect what we focus on. If we focus on what's missing, we will always feel like we don't have enough. If we focus on what's wrong, we will always find reasons to complain. If we focus on fear, negativity, and doubt, we will see the world through a lens of limitation. But the opposite is also true. If we focus on gratitude, we will recognize abundance in our lives. If we focus on possibilities, we will find solutions instead of problems. If we focus on love, we will reflect love back into the world. The question is not whether we are being shaped by our focus. The question is, what are we choosing to focus on? Look at the way people speak. Some people walk into a room and immediately notice what's wrong. The temperature is off. The chairs are uncomfortable. The music is too loud. Others walk into the same room and notice what's right. The people who showed up, the effort that was made, the small details that bring joy. Same room, different experience because of focus. Look at the way we treat ourselves. If we constantly focus on our failures, our flaws, and the things we lack, we begin to reflect those beliefs. We shrink, we doubt ourselves, we hesitate. But when we focus on our strengths, our growth, our capacity to learn and improve, we move with confidence. Not because life is perfect, but because we have chosen to see ourselves through a different lens. Look at the way we interact with others. If we focus on what we dislike in people, that's all we will see. Their mistakes, their shortcomings, the ways they fall short of our expectations. But when we focus on what is good in people, we begin to reflect understanding, patience, and connection. This isn't about ignoring reality. It's not about pretending that problems don't exist or that struggles aren't real. It's about choosing what gets our energy, our attention, our hearts. Because whatever we focus on, we magnify. If you look for reasons to be angry, you will always find them. If you look for reasons to be hopeful, you will always find them. We don't see the world as it is, we see the world as we are. So what are you focusing on? What are you magnifying? Because whether we realize it or not, we are reflecting it back into our lives, into our relationships, into the way we show up every single day. Look around you. The sky, the trees, the rivers, the mountains. None of it is random. None of it is accidental. Nature itself is a testament, a living, breathing declaration of something greater than us. Have you ever watched a sunrise? The way the darkness fades moment by moment until the first golden light stretches across the sky? It happens every single day, yet we rarely stop to think about it. We take for granted the perfect balance of it all. The earth rotating at just the right speed, the sun rising at just the right time, the seasons changing with absolute precision. If the earth were just a little closer to the sun, we would burn. If it were just a little farther away, we would freeze, but here we are, positioned in perfect alignment, sustained by forces beyond our control. That alone is proof that there is order, design, and intention behind everything we see. Nature speaks in ways we often ignore. Consider the trees. They do not rush, yet they grow. They endure storms, shedding their leaves in the fall, standing bare in the winter, only to bloom again in the spring. They remind us that everything has a season, that growth requires patience, and that even in the harshest conditions, life finds a way. Look at the rivers. They carve through mountains, shaping landscapes over time, not by force, but by persistence. Water does not fight obstacles, it moves around them, over them, through them. It teaches us that strength is not always about resistance, but about adaptability. Even the smallest details in nature hold a message. The way a caterpillar transforms into a butterfly, going through a process of complete change before emerging into something new. The way flowers turn toward the sun, seeking light no matter where they are planted. The way birds migrate across thousands of miles, guided by instincts they do not question. There is wisdom in nature, lessons written into creation itself. Look at the oceans, vast and powerful, reminding us that there is more beneath the surface than what we see. Look at the stars scattered across the sky, a glimpse into the infinite, reminding us of how small we are and yet how significant our existence must be. And what about the human body? The way our hearts beat without us telling them to, the way our lungs breathe in oxygen from the very trees that rely on us to exhale carbon dioxide. The way our wounds heal, our cells regenerate, our bodies function with precision we rarely acknowledge. Nothing in nature exists by accident. Every detail, every pattern, every cycle reflects a deeper truth, that life is not chaos, but creation, that everything is connected, that everything has purpose, that nothing is wasted. Yet, how often do we pause to notice? We rush through our days, consumed by schedules, distractions, and worries, forgetting that the very world around us is proof of something bigger. We search for signs, for reassurance, for something to remind us that we are not alone while the evidence is right in front of us. Nature is not just scenery. It is a testament to balance, to resilience, to beauty, to love. It reminds us to trust the process, to embrace change, to keep moving forward, to seek the light, to rest in the knowledge that even in the stillness, growth is happening. Life has a way of sending us exactly what we need, exactly when we need it, but rarely does it arrive in the way we expect. It doesn't come in grand gestures or flashing signs. More often than not, it comes through people. Think back to a time when you were struggling, really struggling. Maybe you were questioning your purpose, feeling lost, carrying a weight no one else could see. And then, seemingly out of nowhere, someone said the right words, offered the right help, showed up in a way that shifted something inside you. That was not an accident. People are the messengers. Every day we cross paths with individuals who knowingly or unknowingly deliver something we need, a word of encouragement, a lesson, a challenge that forces us to grow. And just as often, we are the messengers for someone else. How many times have you said something simple, something unplanned, only to have someone tell you later that it was exactly what they needed to hear? How many times have you helped someone in a way that felt small to you, only to find out it meant everything to them? We don't always recognize it in the moment, but the truth is, we are constantly being used to impact the lives of others. Look at the way kindness works. A stranger holds the door for you, smiles, acknowledges your presence. It seems insignificant, but on a day when you're feeling invisible, that moment reminds you that you matter. A friend calls you out of the blue, just to check in, not knowing you were feeling alone. These moments are not coincidences. They are reminders that love moves through people, that we are connected in ways we don't fully understand, that we were never meant to navigate this world alone. And sometimes the message isn't comfort, it's challenge. Think about the people who have tested you, the ones who have pushed you beyond your comfort zone. Maybe it was a teacher who expected more from you than you thought you were capable of. Maybe it was a leader who held you to a higher standard, a mentor who saw potential in you before you saw it in yourself. Growth rarely happens in isolation. It happens in the friction of relationships, in the way we sharpen one another, in the way we reflect back to each other the truths we need to hear. Even the difficult people in our lives, the ones who frustrate us, who challenge our patience, who test our limits, are messengers in their own way. They teach us boundaries, resilience, forgiveness. They reveal areas within us that need healing. But here's what we often forget. Just as people are messengers for us, we are messengers for them. The way we speak, the way we act, the way we show up, it all matters. We never know what someone else is carrying, what battle they are fighting, what prayer they've whispered in silence, and we may be the answer to it. A simple word of encouragement might be the difference between someone giving up and holding on. A moment of kindness might be what restores someone's faith in humanity. A decision to listen instead of judge, to support instead of criticize, to be present instead of distracted. These are the ways we become messengers of love, of hope, of something greater than ourselves. The question is not whether we are being sent messages or whether we are delivering them. The question is whether we are paying attention, whether we are open to receiving what is being given to us, whether we are willing to be used for something bigger than ourselves. How often do we go through life convinced that what we seek isn't there? We say we want clarity, but all we see is confusion. We say we want love, but all we notice are reasons to guard our hearts. We say we want hope, but the world looks too dark, too uncertain, too broken. But what if the problem isn't that these things don't exist? What if the problem is that we aren't looking? Because here's the truth. What you seek, you will find. If you look for reasons to be angry, you will always find them. If you look for reasons to be disappointed, they will appear. If you look for flaws in yourself, in others, in the world around you, there will never be a shortage. But the same is true in the other direction. If you look for beauty, you will see it. If you look for kindness, you will recognize it. If you look for love, for connection, for purpose, it will reveal itself to you. The difference isn't in the world, it's in where we choose to focus. Think about the last time you bought a new car or a new pair of shoes. Suddenly you started seeing that same car, that same style everywhere. Did more people buy it overnight? Of course not. It was always there. You just started noticing it. The same thing happens with everything else in life. If we decide to look for goodness, we will start to see it because it was always there, waiting to be noticed. Look at the relationships in your life. It's easy to focus on what people do wrong, on the ways they fall short, on the moments they fail to meet our expectations. But what happens when we choose to focus on the good? The patience, the effort, the small acts of care that often go unnoticed? Suddenly we appreciate people more. We feel more connected, more grateful, more at peace. Look at your circumstances. Life will always have struggles. There will always be challenges, setbacks, moments where things don't go as planned. But what happens when we start looking for lessons instead of failures? What happens when we ask, what is this teaching me? How is this shaping me? Instead of feeling stuck, we start to grow. Look at the world around you. Turn on the news, scroll through social media, and you will see plenty of reasons to believe everything is falling apart. But if you shift your focus, if you look for the acts of kindness, the moments of humanity, the people quietly making a difference every day, you will see that love is still everywhere. Because what you seek, you will find. And this isn't just about positive thinking. It's not about ignoring reality or pretending everything is perfect. It's about training our minds to see what has always been there. It's about choosing to focus on the light even when the darkness seems overwhelming. It's about understanding that the answers we are looking for, the hope we are searching for, the love we are longing for are not hidden. They are not out of reach. They are simply waiting for us to open our eyes and see.